यहाँ अपना पूरा स्क्रिप्ट डालें। What if I told you that everything you've been taught about success is wrong? Not a little wrong, completely dangerously wrong. Most people spend their entire lives chasing money, chasing promotions, chasing some version of success that someone else defined for them. They work hard, they follow the rules, they do everything right. And yet, they end up feeling stuck, empty, and invisible. But there's a small group of people, entrepreneurs, leaders, creators, who figured out a different game. They don't follow the same rules. They think differently, they operate differently. And the results they get, completely different. Today, we are going inside the mind of one of those people, a young man who built a company worth hundreds of millions of pounds before the age of 30, failed publicly, lost everything emotionally, and came back stronger than ever. A man who had raw, honest conversations with some of the most successful people on the planet and wrote down the patterns he discovered. What you're about to learn in the next 30 minutes could genuinely change how you see yourself, your work, and your future. Stay until the end, because the last lesson, the one most people never talk about, might be the most important thing you hear all year. Let's go. Before we dive in, let me ask you something. Have you ever watched someone with less experience than you, less talent than you, maybe even less intelligence than you, rise to the top while you stayed exactly where you were? It's frustrating, isn't it? Here's the uncomfortable truth. Success has very little to do with how smart you are. It has almost nothing to do with your degree, your background, or even how hard you work. The people who win, truly win, understand a completely different set of rules. And that's exactly what this book is about. The creator of one of the most listened to podcasts in the world didn't grow up privileged. He didn't have connections, he didn't have money. He had a broken home, a complicated childhood, and a dream that everyone around him thought was unrealistic. But he built something extraordinary. And along the way, he sat down with billionaires, scientists, athletes, psychologists, and world leaders and asked them the questions nobody else was brave enough to ask. The result is a set of powerful principles about how humans actually work, how businesses actually grow, how minds actually shift from average to exceptional. This book is for the person who is tired of reading generic self-help advice. This is for the person who wants to understand the deeper psychology behind why some people rise and others don't. And if you're watching this right now, something tells me you are one of those people who wants more. So, let's get into it. Who you are on the inside becomes what you build on the outside. Here's the first big idea, and I want you to really sit with this one. Every great business, every great career, every great relationship, it is an outward expression of the person who built it. Think about that. When you feel like a fraud inside, your work feels fragile. When you feel uncertain about your own value, you undercharge, you overdeliver, you say yes to things you should say no to. When you carry old wounds from childhood, from failed relationships, from embarrassing moments, those wounds show up in your decisions. Most people try to fix their business. They buy new courses, they hire consultants, they rebrand. But the problem isn't their strategy. The problem is the person executing the strategy. Let me give you an example. Imagine two people starting identical businesses. Same product, same market, same budget. Person A has done the deep inner work. They know who they are. They know their values. They are not afraid of rejection. Person B looks great on paper, but deep down, they are terrified of what people think about them. Every decision they make is filtered through the question, what will people say? Who do you think wins? Person A, every time. Because the business is just a mirror. It reflects back exactly who you are. Now here's the mistake most people make. They think building confidence means faking it. They've heard fake it till you make it and they think that's the strategy. But that's not how it works. Faking confidence doesn't produce results. It produces anxiety. Because somewhere inside you, you know you are pretending. The real work is building what I'd call a rock-solid self-concept. It's the story you tell yourself about who you are, what you deserve, and what you're capable of. And that story gets written, whether you like it or not, by your experiences, your environment, and the words you repeat to yourself daily. So, here's your first action step. Take a piece of paper. Write down 3 beliefs you hold about yourself that might be limiting you. Not surface level stuff. Go deep. I'm not smart enough. People like me don't get rich. I always mess things up. Now ask yourself, where did this belief come from? Who told you this? Was it a teacher, a parent, a failed experience when you were 12? Because most of the beliefs that are running your life today were installed in you before you were old enough to evaluate them. And the first step to changing your results is challenging your beliefs. Your identity is not fixed. You're not your past. You are the person you decide to become starting today. But here's where it gets really interesting. Because even if you fix your mindset, most people still fail. And the reason why will surprise you. Keep watching. Now let's talk about something that most success gurus completely skip over. Emotions. Successful people are not emotionless robots. In fact, the research shows the opposite. The most successful people are deeply emotionally aware. They know their triggers. They know when fear is driving a decision versus logic. They notice when ego is getting in the way of a good idea. Think about how many bad decisions people make when they're angry. How many opportunities they miss because they're too scared to reach out. How many businesses die because the founder is too proud to admit they were wrong. Emotional intelligence is not soft skill. It is a business skill. It is a life skill. A leader who understands their emotions makes better decisions under pressure. A salesperson who reads emotions in a conversation closes more deals. A creator who channels their pain into their content connects more deeply with their audience. And here's the key thing. Emotions are information. They're not enemies to suppress. They're signals to understand. So the question isn't, how do I stop feeling anxious? The better question is, what is my anxiety trying to tell me right now? Maybe it's telling you that something important is on the line. Maybe it's alerting you to a real problem you've been ignoring. When you start listening to your inner world instead of running from it, that's when your outer world starts to change. Narrative is the most powerful force in business and life. Let me tell you a story. Two people apply for the same job, same qualifications, same experience, same interview panel. Person A walks in and says, I worked in marketing for 5 years. I managed social media campaigns and ran some email sequences. Person B walks in and says, I spent 5 years studying consumer behavior at the grassroots level. I discovered what actually makes people pay attention in a noisy digital world and built systems that consistently converted that attention into loyal customers. Same experience, completely different story. Who do you think gets the job? Person B, obviously. And here's why. Because humans don't make decisions based on facts. We make decisions based on stories. Always. Our brains are literally wired this way. When you hear a story, your brain produces chemicals that create emotion, and emotion drives decisions. This is true for businesses. The most successful brands in the world are not just selling products, they are selling narratives. They are selling a story about who you become when you use their product. Apple doesn't sell phones. They sell the story of being a creative, intelligent, forward-thinking person. Nike doesn't sell shoes. They sell the story of the athlete inside you that's waiting to be unleashed. And the question for you, whether you're building a business, building a personal brand, or even interviewing for a job, is this. What story are you telling? And more importantly, is it the right story? Most people undersell themselves not because they lack value, but because they don't know how to articulate their value as a compelling story. They give facts when people need feelings, they give data when people need drama. Here's what I mean by drama, and I don't mean something fake. Every good story has 3 things: a challenge, a journey, and a transformation. Think about your own life. What's the challenge you've overcome? What's the journey you've been on? And how have you been transformed? That story, your real, honest, lived story, is your biggest competitive advantage. Because nobody else has your exact story. Nobody. And when you learn to tell it clearly, powerfully, and authentically, people don't just listen, they connect, they trust, they follow. Now here's where most people get this completely wrong, and it actually costs them customers, clients, and credibility. Stay with me. The biggest storytelling mistake I see people make is this. They make themselves the hero. And I know that sounds counterintuitive. You're telling your story, shouldn't you be the hero? No, and here's why. When you make yourself the hero, your audience becomes the audience. They're just watching you.
But when you make your customer, your viewer, your reader the hero of the story and position yourself as the guide who helps them on their journey, suddenly they're inside the story. They feel seen, they feel understood, they feel like you're talking directly to them. The greatest leaders, teachers, and creators in the world are not people who say, "Look how amazing I am." They are people who say, "I see you, I understand your struggle, and here's how I can help you get to where you want to be." That shift from hero to guide changes everything about how people perceive you. Start asking yourself, in every piece of content I create, in every conversation I have, in every email I send, am I centering myself or am I centering the person I'm trying to serve? When the answer is always the second one, you become irresistible. What separates the 1% is not what you think. Okay, this is the part of the video where things get really deep. I need you to pay close attention, because what I'm about to share with you explains almost everything about why some people break through ceilings that others never even touch. It comes down to one word: standards. Not goals.
यहाँ अपना पूरा स्क्रिप्ट डालें. Not vision boards, not affirmations, standards. Here's the difference. A goal is something you want to achieve. A standard is the minimum you will accept. Most people set big goals and have low standards. They say they want to make $1 million, but they accept mediocre work from themselves every single day. They want a six-figure body, but they accept skipping the gym 4 days a week. They want a thriving business, but they accept the habit of scrolling social media for 2 hours every morning. The gap between your goals and your standards is the gap between where you are and where you want to be. Truly successful people, and I mean the ones who stay successful, not the lucky one-hit wonders, have non-negotiable standards for themselves. Not because someone is watching, not to impress anyone, but because they have an internal benchmark of excellence that they simply will not go below. Let me paint you a picture. A world-class chef doesn't serve a dish that isn't perfect because a customer might not notice. They refuse to serve it because they notice. Because their standard is excellence, regardless of whether anyone else is watching. That's the difference. Average people perform for external validation, exceptional people perform because of internal standards. And here's the uncomfortable truth I promised you. Most people will never raise their standards because raising your standards means being uncomfortable. It means holding yourself accountable. It means saying no to the easy path. It means doing the hard thing when nobody's making you. And in a world designed to make you comfortable with streaming services on demand, food delivered to your door, dopamine hits every 30 seconds on your phone, raising your standards requires active, daily, intentional resistance. Here's where it gets even more psychological, because it turns out the people who succeed the most aren't the ones who want it the most. They are the ones who do this instead. Let me tell you about what researchers call the consistency advantage. We live in a world obsessed with intensity. Everybody wants the dramatic transformation, the 30-day challenge, the extreme diet, the 5 a.m. miracle morning. But the science is clear. Sustained, moderate consistency beats intense, unsustainable bursts every single time. Think about water and stone. If you drop a single massive boulder onto a stone, you might crack it. But if you let water drip on that same stone every single day, year after year, it carves through completely. That's what daily, consistent action does to your goals. The problem is that consistency is boring. It doesn't make for exciting social media content. Nobody wants to post day 47 of writing 500 words before work, nothing dramatic happened today. But day 400, that's a book. Day 1000, that's a movement. The people who build extraordinary things are almost never the most talented. They are almost never the most well-connected. They are almost always the most consistent. And here's the psychological key. They've built systems that make consistency the path of least resistance. They don't rely on motivation because motivation is an emotion and emotions are temporary. They rely on environment and habit. What does your environment make easy? What does it make hard? If your phone is next to your bed, it's easy to scroll and hard to meditate. If your gym clothes are laid out the night before, it's easy to work out and hard to skip. Your environment is silently voting for or against your success every single day. Design it intentionally or it will design you by default.
This might be the most controversial thing I say in this entire video, so stay with me. Hard work is not the same as smart work. I know you've heard work hard your entire life, from your parents, from your teachers, from every motivational speaker on Instagram. And yes, effort matters, I'm not saying it doesn't. But here's what nobody tells you. Most hardworking people are working incredibly hard on the wrong things. Let me explain with a simple analogy. Imagine you're trying to fill a bathtub. You turn the taps on full, the water's rushing in, you're working hard. But there's a drain at the bottom and it's wide open. No matter how hard you work, no matter how much water you pour in, the tub will never fill. That drain? That's the stuff most people never audit. Bad habits that drain energy, wrong partnerships that drain resources, unclear messaging that drains opportunity, trying to be everything to everyone that drains focus. The most successful people I've ever studied don't just work hard, they audit relentlessly. They're constantly asking, is this the highest value thing I could be doing right now? Is this moving the needle, or is this just making me feel busy? And here's where people misuse the concept of hard work. They wear busyness like a badge of honor. I worked 80 hours this week. Cool, but what did those 80 hours produce? Research consistently shows that most knowledge workers have about 3 to 4 hours of genuinely peak productive work in them per day. The rest is filler. Meetings that could have been emails, emails that could have been ignored, tasks that feel important but don't move anything forward. The highest performers don't work more hours. They protect fewer hours with ferocious intensity and make those hours count beyond what most people accomplish in a week. And here's the part that will blow your mind, because it turns out the way you think about rest is completely backwards. Let me show you what I mean. Most people think rest is the opposite of productivity. They think success means sacrificing sleep, sacrificing weekends, sacrificing relationships. But neuroscience says the opposite. Your brain consolidates learning during sleep. Your most creative ideas emerge not when you're staring at your screen, but when you're in the shower, on a walk, or lying quietly. This is called the default mode network, and it's when your brain makes the connections that produce breakthrough ideas. The people who build the biggest things don't burn themselves down. They protect their energy the way a top athlete protects their physical health. They know that a depleted version of themselves is worth a fraction of a rested version. Now, let me tell you how the most successful people actually structure their time. They say no more than they say yes. They guard their mornings like gold. They batch similar tasks together to reduce mental switching costs. They build recovery into their week the same way they build work into it. And most importantly, they know their genius zone, the 2 or 3 things they do better than almost anyone else, and they spend the majority of their time there, delegating or eliminating everything else. What's in your genius zone? And what are you doing every day that is nowhere near it? That's the audit that changes everything. Okay, you've heard the ideas, but knowing something and doing something are 2 completely different things, and the gap between them is where most people live forever. So, here's your 7-day implementation plan. Simple, practical, designed for the real world. Day 1, the belief audit. Sit down with a notebook for 20 minutes. Write down 5 beliefs you hold about yourself, money, success, and relationships. Then ask for each, is this actually true, or is this a story I inherited? Challenge the beliefs that don't serve you. Day 2, the story rewrite. Write out your personal story, your struggle, your journey, your transformation. Then rewrite it so that someone reading it sees themselves in your journey. Practice centering others, not just yourself. Day 3, standards inventory. List 5 areas of your life: health, work, relationships, finances, and mindset. Rate your current standard in each from 1 to 10. Then write down what a 10 actually looks like. What are the non-negotiables you'll commit to? Day 4, Environment Design Day. Look at your physical environment. What is making bad habits easy and good habits hard? Move one thing. Move your phone out of your bedroom. Put a book on your pillow. Put your gym bag by the door. Small environmental change, massive long-term impact. Day 5, the time audit. Track every 30 minutes of your day. At the end, look at it honestly. How much time was in your genius zone? How much was filler? Identify one recurring time drain you can eliminate or delegate immediately. Day 6, the story practice. Have one conversation with a colleague, a potential client, or a friend where you intentionally practice storytelling. Don't give facts, give a story with a challenge, a journey, and a transformation. Day 7, the rest day, but do it right. Take a real rest day. No guilt, no hustle. Walk outside, read for fun, cook something you love. Let your default mode network do its job. The ideas that come to you on this day might be worth more than an entire week of desk work. Before I let you go, I want to share something that I believe with everything in me. The biggest prison in the world has no walls. It's built entirely out of opinions, what you think others think of you, what you think you deserve, what you think is possible for someone like you. And here's the truth. Most of those thoughts aren't even yours. They were placed there by people who were also imprisoned, by teachers who were told they couldn't, by parents who were told to be realistic, by society that profits from you believing you're ordinary. But you are not ordinary. Nobody is. Every single person who achieved something remarkable started from exactly where you are now, confused, uncertain, not sure if they had what it takes. The only difference between them and the version of you that never tries is a decision. One decision to take the first step. One decision to not quit when it gets hard. One decision to believe that your future is not determined by your past. I want you to think about someone in your life. Someone young, someone who looks up to you. Maybe it's a child, maybe it's a younger sibling, maybe it's a version of yourself from 10 years ago. What would it mean for that person if you became everything you're capable of? What would it mean for them if you didn't? That answer, that responsibility, might be more powerful than any goal you've ever set. Because when you grow, you give permission to everyone around you to grow too. Your success is not selfish. It is a gift to your family, to your community, to the world that needs more people who decided to show up fully. The world doesn't need more people who are surviving. It needs more people who are alive. And that starts with you, today, with this decision right now. All right, we covered a lot today. We talked about building your identity from the inside out. We talked about the power of storytelling. We talked about standards versus goals, the consistency advantage, the audit that changes how you work, and a 7-day plan to put it all into action. Now here's what I want from you. If any part of this video made you think, made you feel, made you want to do something differently, hit that like button. It genuinely helps more people find this content. Subscribe if you're new here. We drop content every week designed to help you think sharper, build bigger, and live deeper. And drop a comment right now, just one thing. Tell me, what was the single biggest idea from today's video that hit you the hardest? I read every comment, genuinely. And share this with one person in your life who needs to hear it. You never know, this might be the video that changes their trajectory. This was your deep dive into the principles behind one of the most powerful books on success, identity, and building a life you're actually proud of. I'll see you in the next one. Stay building.